Welcome to episode 40 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Friday's Child.
In this week's episode, Kirk, Spock and McCoy visit a civilization where the Doctor previously spent time on assignment. They are surprised to find the Klingons have stolen a march on their diplomatic efforts, leading to conflict. When McCoy takes responsibility for the care of a pregnant widow, Kirk and Spock must protect them until help arrives from the Enterprise. But with little to construct weapons from and no place to hide, could their time finally be up?
You will not touch me in that manner.
You listen to me, young woman. I'll touch you in any way or manner that my professional judgment indicates.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Good evening, Gerry. I am not too bad.
Okay if I touch you?
Not that way.
Are you sure? I'll be entirely professional.
Will you? That's not your profession.
I didn't say it was my profession. I'll touch you like a doctor. Mate.
I don't know whether to say Happy New Year because this is going to be about the third episode out.
We've not bothered with all this sort of stuff because of the timings. We should have worked out when it was Christmas. We didn't do a Christmas one, did we?
We skipped that week.
Yeah, well, that's why we don't do these things.
Yeah, we'll say nothing.
No, nothing at all. How are things anyway? All right?
Not
Did you have a good New Year?
Pretty quiet, to be honest.
A COVID New Year, doing nothing, sitting about. I've ate an absolute ton of Toblerone.
A whole Toblerone?
More than a whole, big ones as well.
Really?
I went through a lot of them, yeah.
I went through a making cheesecakes phase over the break. I've made
Alright.
2 cheesecakes and nobody else would eat any of them. So
No.
I've eaten 2 cheesecakes as well.
There's no harm in that. You get back to the gym,
It's mostly cheese. Cheese is good for you.
sort of.
In moderation.
Very small amounts.
Yeah.
And the cake part's not ideal.
No, and yeah, the other ingredients also bad.
Yeah. We're all going to die anyway, so.
That's it, we'll be dead soon, so it doesn't matter. Did you enjoy the return of the Klingons?
I did. And I've got a question about that. We'll get to that later on.
It's got some interesting bedside manner from the Doctor as well.
It's got incredible... There's one scene in particular which is really disturbing and quite uncomfortable to watch.
We'll discuss that as well.
I'm
as
sure we will,
go.
yeah.
Should we get right into it?
Why not? Let's crack on. Meeting room start.
Yeah, up in the briefing room with McCoy, giving some kind of talk to the senior staff about these Capellans.
Yeah, they're around an interesting triangular viewing screen.
Keeps things modern.
Yeah. These Capellans are people who are fast, strong, and up to 7 feet in height. Tyson Fury, you might say.
Maybe. I like the fact that the makers of this episode have decided that in the future they will have determined that triangles are the perfect shape for viewing things on.
As long as it's a meeting of 3.
Yes.
These Capellans have got an interesting choice of weapon.
Yes, it's a big sharp boomerangy thing called a cleavat.
A cleaver? A cleat?
I thought cleavat.
Maybe. You're thinking of a cleaver.
I think the people who made it up were thinking of a cleaver.
So in the future, they're going to throw you sharp boomerangs around. It doesn't seem very advanced.
That's not the future. Well, it is the future for them, but they're not a technologically advanced race.
Certainly not, no.
They also have swords and knives, to be fair.
You don't bring a sword to a phaser fight.
They're making a key point here that all they have are cleavats, swords and knives. It's not really emphasised it.
And they're an aggressive bunch. If that's all you've got in that day and age when there are phasers, and that's after guns and bazookas, okay, and you've only got a little sword, you don't be an aggressive race. You're not going to win.
Yeah, they also don't believe in medicine.
Yeah, so you're going to pick a fight with someone who's got a bazooka, and then you can't fix yourself.
And for some reason McCoy was stationed there as a medic.
Yeah.
When they don't believe in medicine. That was a careless choice.
Yeah, didn't think that one through, did they?
No. I think they believe in the survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
I mean, so do we. We still treat people who are sick.
No, we don't believe in the survival of the fittest at all.
Well,
that's not our philosophy. Ian, wait a second.
Evolutionary.
How do you think this works?
Evolutionarily, we believe in survival of the fittest.
Yeah,
the strongest genes are carried down.
Sure, but there was a chap that tried that in the past. He wasn't looked upon too favourably.
Yeah, but he skewed things, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll leave you. What were your flying cars that you don't think are any good?
Yeah.
And people who should be, survival of the fittest. Okay, sure. We'll move on.
Fine. Sulu comes on comms to say that the encampment has been located on the planet. You would think that was quite an easy task. They must know where they're going.
Nothing to boast about. So Kirk tells him to have the transporter room to stand by.
He does, and Spock offers advice on what type of landing party they should take.
Well, normally they would get down there all guns blazing.
But that might upset folks, so they're not going to. There are taboos that they cannot violate if they want to secure a mining treaty.
Yeah, we also have a bit of exposition when Scotty asks McCoy how long he was stationed with these people. He's told a few months now. Why would he ask that? If McCoy at some point has been off the ship for a few months.
Well, I think the suggestion is it's before he joined the Enterprise.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Although he is wearing the modern uniforms, it might be just before he was on the Enterprise.
Yeah, because on the screen we see him down there.
Yeah.
So he's wearing the gear.
Yeah.
So you're wrong.
No, it could be immediately, but he's not in episode 1, remember? Well, he is in episode 1. He's on episode 3. Anyhow, yes, Scotty's being left in command, and he's given more of an exposition dump about Klingons in the area to keep an eye out for them.
Down on the planet, Capella 4.
Yeah.
I'm calling it Capella from now on.
It's the 4th best Capella.
Acapella is number 1.
It is a cappella.
Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and a random red shirt. This is going to bode well for him, isn't it? They arrive at a busy camp and are told to halt by some locals.
They are. They're then greeted by a man called Ma'ab, and McCoy offers a traditional greeting.
Yeah, he informs them that they're not hostile, although this is immediately disproved.
Yes, a Klingon comes from behind the tall gentleman,
Ma'ab,
and the red shirt panics, draws his phaser, and is immediately cleagatted, whatever it is.
This is entirely understandable.
Yes.
And I do not like Kirk's reaction. I don't like the action of the crew at all here.
Well, we get credits first and stuff, so we'll get into this in a second. But I wanted to point out before that the greeting that McCoy offers is eerily similar to the fascistic greeting they used in Mirror Mirror.
Yes.
Except in this case it's meant to be tribal and friendly.
Well.
They can only think of one thing. Punch your chest, sit your arm out, that'll do. That's the traditional universal greeting.
There's lucky there's not another salute being offered there.
Indeed. It's all about the arm angles.
We have the credits followed by Captain's Log 3497.2. They're after some minerals. Tell us about...
Propylene.
Yeah.
It's vital to the life support systems of planetoid colonies.
And as you mentioned, I think their mission is to put in place a mining agreement.
Yes, but the Klingons are there first.
Yeah, well, that's too bad. Just because you don't like the Klingons. I do have an issue with their attitude.
Of course. We pick up almost immediately after the death of the crewman with Krass, the Klingon, questioning why this guard would draw his weapon.
Yeah, he wants to know if they have a shoot-to-kill policy regarding the Klingons, as he is unaware of any current conflict or war that they might be engaged in.
Indeed. Kirk says this officer was young and inexperienced, which makes no sense because they've just had a briefing where they were told there are many taboos and you have to be very careful. So why would you bring a young and inexperienced officer on the landing party? Terrible
decision by... we'll look back actually. It's a terrible decision by Kirk to bring this person who's obviously not experienced enough. He's not been trained and they're not confident enough in his personality to bring him in such a sensitive and volatile
you would at least
mission.
think he should get to sit in on the meeting where they're getting briefed on these people.
Yeah, but secondly as well, I just don't think that most of the crew are very well trained. We've seen this plenty of times. They're rubbish at fighting. They
run around like headless chickens half the time.
Dreadful.
Stand on bombs and things.
Yeah. Pick things up when you shouldn't. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, get right up to a poisonous flower and stick it in your face. So I'm with the Klingons at this point. We're down here first. We're trying to negotiate. We've got just as much of a right to try and negotiate.
Yeah.
In fact, as we find out, we've abided by their customs. We've shown some sort of... we've offered something to show we're here in peace.
Yep.
And we're here first. You come down and you immediately try and kill one of us.
For no reason.
Yeah, go away. You had your chance. Beat it.
Now, McCoy then says something which I didn't find clear. He talks about the Klingons and humans being sworn enemies, but I wasn't sure if he was saying they, the Federation, consider the Klingons their sworn enemies, or the Klingons consider us their sworn enemies, or the Klingons think we consider them their... I didn't
I think
really
it's both.
understand.
I think both parties just, from what he said there, I took it as both parties regard each other as enemies.
Having sworn enemies when you're not at war is quite a childish idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they're baddies.
Yeah.
We don't talk to them. Anyway, Mab says he doesn't care.
No, well, why should he?
Exactly. It's none of his business. He's not interested.
No.
Keep it off my planet.
So they ask the crew of the Enterprise to show the same courtesy that the Klingons have, or the Klingon, by handing over their weapons and communication devices.
Yes, Kirk wants to advise the Enterprise first, but the Klingon sees this as an opportunity to stir up discontent.
Well, he thinks that they might report back to the Enterprise of their existence and plan an attack. That's quite right. No, don't talk to your ship. If you want to be here, hand over your equipment immediately.
In any event, they do ultimately surrender their weapons and communicators.
They then head inside a guarded tent where an unwarrantedly angry... Is that a real word? Unwarrantedly?
No.
You sure? If it's unwarranted...
Just unwarranted.
Yeah, but that's... Something is unwarranted, but if your attitude is Anyway, where an unwarranted angry Kirk takes his feelings out on McCoy.
So they keep their word scrupulously. They're unusually honest. Is that what I heard you say in the briefing room, Doctor?
Yes, I mentioned that.
He also mentioned that they can be highly dangerous.
Dangerous if lied to. If their customs are violated. Well, we lied to no one, Doctor. We violated no customs. Perhaps you'll explain to me why one of my men is dead.
Because he was drawing a weapon on another of their guests.
Grant looked up. Saw a Klingon, made a purely instinctive, defensive move. And what's a Klingon doing down here among your scrupulously honest friends anyway?
Look, Jim, I know what it means to you to lose a crewman.
It's only one down, Doctor. There's over 400 more up there in orbit. And if there's a Klingon down here, there might be a Klingon ship up there somewhere.
Out of order from Kirk there.
Absolutely. He'll realise himself shortly.
I did also like the fact that McCoy notes that he does understand what it's like for him to lose a crew member. It's because he's done it often enough.
Pretty much every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. They should just mark the weeks that he doesn't lose a crew member.
Would be easier. Up in the bridge.
Your favourite place. The Enterprise has picked up a ship at the edge of their sensor range, but without any data to support his assumption, Scotty decides it must be the Klingons.
Did we mention earlier that Scotty was put in charge?
Yes.
Good. However, since it is a distance away, Scotty decides it's not worth bothering Kirk with at this point in time.
Sure, fair enough.
Back down to the tent.
Yes, where Kirk apologises to McCoy for yelling at him.
Realises he's been an arse.
He does, and he's chastised by Spock for being so emotional.
Which he agrees with, and illogical.
Indeed.
At this point, Kirk perks up, because a blonde enters with food, which is offered to him.
Yes, he goes to accept this, but is stopped by McCoy.
You see, I've got an issue with this as well with McCoy here. Firstly, McCoy explains that it is a gesture of goodwill because they handed over their weapons.
Yes. I think he's kind of taunting Kirk into doing what he does here.
Yeah, because Kirk, obviously taking this on board, goes to take some of the food,
gesture,
which you would. And at this point, McCoy jumps up. No, don't do it. It's dangerous. It's a trap.
How can you not see this? What?
Why is it a trap?
Because if he accepts it, then he will have to engage in a fight to the death with one of her nearest relatives. I think he gets the girl if he wins, though.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't want the girl.
Well,
he always wants the girl, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, and he quite often is tricked into fights to the death as well.
Yeah.
We saw at least once in a mock time.
We see the girl's male counterpart. He enters on it. I think they're both disappointed when Kirk isn't baited into this.
Yes, he's called a chura by the male relative, whatever that means, and Spock notes that it sounded like disappointment.
Yeah. We head then to the leader's tent.
The tier, AKR. Yeah, they've got double vowels when they pronounce them both.
They do, yeah. Yeah, so AKR, the leader of the 10 tribes of Capella is there with his young pregnant wife, Eliane. So Kirk introduces himself and again protests the killing of his red shirt.
Yes, Akar seems confused before Ma'ab points out that the Earthmen have different traditions and it was not an honour for this man to die for Kirk.
And this gives Crass the opportunity.
Lives up to his name.
Yeah, he ridicules him for being scared of death.
Yes, not like the Klingons who welcome death.
Reminds me of Blackadder with a fate worse than death.
Yes. Well, we learn later on that the Klingons have a slogan which is, today is a good day to die.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not them, someone else.
No, themselves. They love dying in battle, it makes them happy.
All right.
That's how they get to heaven, or Klingon heaven, Stovokor.
Yeah, it's a contradiction, but if you like dying, it's one of these...
Well, it's not that you want to die, it's just that it's not something you're concerned about.
Yeah, well, there's people around the world, different religions have that.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course.
Dangerous. It's a dangerous attitude to have, mind you.
It is. What's also dangerous is to not take opponents seriously, and McCoy probably falls into that trap a little bit here.
Why?
Well, he mocks the Klingon.
How did you do that?
He says, what the Klingon has said is unimportant, and we do not hear his words, which causes laughter, at least in Akaar's group. McCoy then explains to Kirk that he called the Klingon a liar, which has upset Ma'ab.
We should say there is obvious tension between Akaar and Ma'ab.
Yes.
I think Akaar, he points out that Starfleet had arranged to have this discussion.
Yes, but Ma'ab says the Klingon is also an honoured guest, and while they're arguing, Crass points out that the humans offer only medicines and education. And
what have the Romans ever done for...
Exactly. Eliane appears to agree with Crass at this point before Kirk interjects with an additional offering.
What's that? Tell me about this.
He says that the Federation also offer autonomy that the Klingons would take away. But this doesn't seem to bother Ma'ab, whilst Akaar, as you said, sides with Kirk.
Yeah, I think at this point Akaar says it's his choice if they should fight or not, and then they both leave.
Well, Ma'ab and his group leave, and Kirk, Spock and McCoy ask Akaar for their communicators back, but he's not really interested in what comes from the sky and tells him to go away.
But it's not him, it tells him to go away.
Is it Eliane?
It is.
There you go.
Back up in the bridge.
Yes, the ship that was on the edge of sensor range has gone, but Uhura has briefly picked up a faint distress call.
Yeah, so Scotty tells her to try and boost it, but she has lost it, however claims it sounded like a call from an Earth ship. Back down in Capella.
It reminded me of this bit of the scene in The Apple when they all try and crush the skulls of the humans. It's just kind of a stylised fight.
Yeah, it's chaos.
Yes. And Kirk decides to join in when a Capellan comes into the tent.
Did you notice Spock simply standing there with his arms folded? At one point, Kirk's having a fight and Spock's not interested in getting his hands dirty.
Yeah, he doesn't want to get involved.
Yeah.
He's obviously got a plan.
Inside the tent, they find Crass searching for their communicators. But he is easily overpowered by Kirk, who holds a knife to his throat and demands to know where his ship is.
He does, and he also wants to know what the Klingons' mission is. But they're interrupted when Ma'ab enters and demands Kirk release the Klingon.
Akaar is dead. I am the Tyr.
Kill him now.
Wait. If you lead these people now, be certain you make the right decisions.
Is the new leader of the 10 tribes afraid? Let me kill him for you.
Or let the Klingon and me fight. It might amuse you.
Perhaps to be a Tyr is to see in new ways. I begin to like you, Earthman. And I saw fear in the Klingon's eye.
We had an agreement.
That too may change Klingon.
Briefly back to the bridge to keep things broken up. Uhura reports that this distress signal is coming from the freighter SS Deirdre.
Yes. That's what I wanted to write and say. from Coronation Street, big pair of glasses.
Yes. Under attack from the Klingons, the ship is looking for assistance, and Sulu sets the course.
Yeah, he also tells her to try and communicate with Kirk, but of course there is no success.
Scotty does, yes.
Back down in the tent, Iain is brought in at sword point and is tripped by Mahab, causing Kirk to react naturally to try and help her.
Yes, this causes all kinds of problems.
Why?
Well, I should say first of all, when she falls, she burns her arm on the fire, because that's going to come back to be important. Kirk touches her on his way to protect her, and this is a taboo, obviously.
Yeah. Mahab reminds her that she carries a child who would be Tier, and because of this, she understands and accepts that she must die.
Yeah, she's not got a problem.
Oh well, that's that. Easy solution.
Kirk starts this Rami, and when order is restored, Iain demands her right to see Kirk executed for touching her.
Yeah, he probably wasn't expecting that.
No.
He's trying to help her out here.
There you go. That's him imposing his values in a different society once again.
I think she also says that she is the wife of a Tier.
Yeah, that's why he's not allowed to touch her.
No, but she's not.
Well, she was the wife of a Tier.
No longer.
She's not the wife of the Tier, she's like the wife of a Tier.
She was the wife of a Tier.
Yes, that's a status that she retains even though he's dead.
Right, okay.
And she's about to be dead.
Quite right.
Again, briefly back to the bridge. Uhura's not getting through to any of them on the planet. Chekhov's got a message which is a bit weird because that's Uhura's job.
Yeah, what's his... He manages to pick up some audio.
Yeah, the distress call, which
From
is a little
Deirdre.
bit strange, yeah.
Blanche!
Sulu then plots the intercept course and Scotty orders them out of orbit. He decides to respond to this call without getting in touch with Kirk.
Yeah, it's not just without getting in touch. He's prioritising the distress call over his...
Yeah, over finding out what the problem is, yeah.
Or helping them.
That's it. We get a very... I was going to say a brief captain's log. It's not brief, it's
a Scotty log as well.
Yeah, and we then see Scotty on the bridge dictating the log.
3498.9. It's a recap of the situation, although he notes that he is concerned about not being able to reach the landing party.
Well, you would be.
You should be.
Down in the tent, Kirk and Spock have determined that there is an issue on the Enterprise as they are long past the time when they should have checked in and no rescue party has come.
McCoy then decides to help Iain with her damaged arm, which both Spock and Kirk think is a good idea.
Well, they say they think it's a good idea quite loudly and in exaggerated terms because they want to distract the guards.
So they can attack them, which they do. And after accomplishing this, they ask Iain if she really would rather die.
At knife point.
And she admits that living is preferable.
On balance.
Yeah, and we'll come with them.
Take the knife off my throat.
But outside.
Yes, where Crass is asking Mab for his weapon back.
He's got a throne outside. It's unusual to have an outside throne.
Must get good weather.
Yeah.
Mab says that the weapon will be returned when the business between them has been concluded.
Yeah, as was the agreement. Back up in the bridge.
They've reached the source of this distress call, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, we worked out this was a freighter.
They said it was the SS Deirdre.
Yeah, a freighter.
Yes, but it's not there.
It's not. And so Scotty orders a full intensity sensor scan of the area.
None of your half-arsed sensor scans.
So was like, really? Do I need to? Yep.
Full intensity.
Okay.
Oh, to see it on your face.
Chekhov then tells them that it should be under screens. And Scotty is irritated by Sulu pointing out that a freighter can only travel at warp 2.
Yes, so it shouldn't have been able to clear the area.
Another captain's log, 3499.1. They managed to get their communicators, but not their phasers. And before heading into the hills, they accept that they will quite quickly and eventually be found by the Capellans.
Yes, by scent alone if necessary. There's also another fact that they've figured out.
When you say a fact, it's quite a dark reveal.
It's a very dark reveal.
What is it?
The girl, or the widow, Iain, apparently hates the unborn child that she is carrying.
Yeah, I mean...
It's a bit vague as well. Why?
Well, because she accepts what it means that she has in some way disrespected or been disrespectful to the tier.
By already being pregnant to the previous tier.
And being touched, I don't know.
It's not clear.
It's not.
Anyway, on a hillside, similar to the one that we saw in Arena, and I think Shore Leave,
No doubt.
and probably another episode or two as well.
For sure.
McCoy, Eliane, Spock, and Kirk are together. Spock and Kirk are heading off to scout the area, while McCoy tries to attend to Eliane's burn. And this is the scene that you found distressing.
Yes. McCoy places his hand on Eliane's stomach and she tells him not to. And he replies, as we heard at the start of the podcast in the clip.
Yeah, I'll touch you if I want.
Yeah, medically, professionally, but I'll touch you, young lady.
You're under my care.
And as we heard at the end of the intro clip, this causes her to slap him.
Quite
Twice.
right.
Twice, yeah. I've told you not to touch me.
And
Doesn't
you keep doing
matter
it.
if you keep doing it. Yeah,
You're not my doctor.
Precisely. And you've been quite aggressive and assertive about it.
Yeah. He's been quite intimidating, I think. I would be terrified if I was her.
And then we get the incident that, I mean, I don't know if this is something that's discussed in Star Trek and Trekor circles as being outrageous. I don't know how big a deal this is.
It should be a big deal.
Yeah, he thinks that the best way to react to her asserting her rights not to be touched by him after giving him plenty of warning
Yeah.
is to violently hit her back.
He assaults her.
A pregnant woman.
Yeah. With no regard for her well-being.
Yeah. He thinks that's the best way to... It's a James Bond sort of, I'll slap you until you realise I'm in the right and you're in the wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Well, which works.
It's a shocker. I was watching this going, did he just hit her there? It shows you the difference in attitudes of the 60s, I think. That the writers and the producers and the TV networks all thought that was perfectly reasonable,
Yep.
a perfectly reasonable thing to do. In fact, maybe I think they played this as comedy.
Exactly. That she needed to put in her place, and that's him done that now.
And they obviously accepted that an audience would think this was fine. And
Or funny.
yeah, you know, generally, not everyone necessarily, but that it was fit for broadcast.
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah.
Shocking behaviour. Anyhow, having obtained her permission to continue touching her, he determines that the baby is due imminently, which amazes Eliane.
Yeah, she's impressed enough by this knowledge to hold his hand on hers on top of her
She's
stomach or
almost
belly.
mesmerised.
Well, again, this is because we know that they don't have any medical knowledge, or they've never tried. So for someone to be able to tell
Yeah.
her this, she thinks this is some sort of magic.
Yeah.
Spock then approaches at this moment of tenderness. I mean, it's quite a juxtaposition from the physical assault of a pregnant woman to a very sort of tender interaction between both,
Yeah.
which causes him to sort of smirk, raise an eyebrow.
Yeah, and then go off to speak to Kirk about escape paths and sonic disruptions.
McCoy, you see his reaction, he's embarrassed. He's not embarrassed about hitting a woman, pregnant woman, he's embarrassed about being gentle with her.
Yes. Yes. People might think he's soft.
Yeah. Yeah, so up in the rocks, Spock is with Kirk now as they see the Capellans are nearly on them, but think that they can buy a bit of time by blocking the path and forcing them to go around a longer way.
Yeah, well, Kirk thinks this. Spock's sceptical, but as so often, Kirk wins him over with the very lightest piece of reverse psychology.
Yeah, and so Spock agrees to try a sonic disruption using their communicator. I've noted here that this is just made up. We've never seen this in the past.
Produce a feedback loop at a high enough frequency to vibrate the rocks until
where
the
you go.
avalanche is caused.
This is poor script writing.
Anyhow, it works.
Yeah, it does.
And Ma'ab and his party half of them get killed, and the rest of them are pushed back by the falling rocks.
However, it allows Crash to, in the confusion, to take a weapon whilst finishing off one of the wounded before the remaining group take off on this detour.
Indeed. Back to McCoy, who is concerned about the child being delivered successfully, but more reverse psychology from Kirk was, if you don't think you can do it.
He then goes off himself on a scouting mission, Kirk that is, before returning to be told by Eliane that only McCoy can touch her when he tries to help her move.
Yes, but McCoy says, shut up.
And slaps her. Gives her a boot up the arse.
They'll touch you if I say they have to touch you.
I'm the captain here. Get touching. Anyway, He tells them that he found a cave.
Yes. We nip back up to the bridge briefly.
Sorry, yeah, we do, but there's a nice line there as well.
Okay, what's your favourite line?
But it's not a favourite line, but McCoy says he's a doctor, not an escalator, when
Yes.
he's asked to help her move.
Indeed.
Up on the bridge, as you say.
Scotty, Uhura, Chekhov and Sulu take longer than they should to figure out that they've been duped. And even then, Uhura remains sceptical.
Well, firstly, Scotty asked Chekhov to pull the microtape off the distress call.
Yes, you almost hear the click of the recorder as he ejects the disc. They didn't envision cloud computing very well.
No. Yeah, and as you say, they realise it's a trap. They've been sent on a wild goose chase.
Yeah, not so much a trap as a distraction, I think.
Yeah. But for some reason, Scotty decides to stay and continue the search, rather than return to the planet.
Yeah, I think it's because of Uhura's insistence that maybe it was a real distress call. She's not willing to let it go.
Scotty's the captain. He makes the decisions.
Yep. And that's his decision. They're going to confirm that there's nothing in the area before they leave.
Back down on the planet, they enter the darkened cave and use a light tablet to start a fire.
A magnesium nitro tablet. I wonder what happens if you swallow that tablet. One misplaced burp. You go up in flames.
Elian starts to complain about the pain, and there is another odd exchange. As McCoy explains, I think, to her, I read this as being jealous.
Yes, Kirk, yes, he wants to know why McCoy is allowed to touch her, and he explains that he beat it out of her.
That's another played for comedy. Yeah, I gave her a right cross, but yeah, he did. It wasn't even it's not even a threat of our...
It's not a metaphorical...
No. He did, he hit her, and now she loves me.
Yeah.
Or now she respects me.
Yes, and Kirk's like,
Need to try that sometime. Outside the cave, Spock shows Kirk that there is vegetation, and so there must be water nearby. I'm not sure why that's important.
In case they have to stay there for months.
Oh, right, okay.
But they won't, because they're going to get found by Scent alone.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Anyhow, Kirk points out that they don't need water, they need weapons. And Spock's like, I've not seen anything.
Back in the cave, Elian is now in extreme pain as McCoy tells her that she must want the child, but he gets more than he bargained for.
No! McCoy!
Easy. Easy, I'm here. Now, you must want the child.
No. Your child belongs to a husband.
So they take all the credit here. Poppycock. Answer me. Do you want my help? Answer me. Do you want my help? All right. Say to yourself, the child is mine. The child is mine. It is mine.
Yes. It's yours.
No, you've got it all wrong.
Yes. McCoy. It's yours.
No, say to yourself, the child is mine. It is mine. It is... Uh-oh.
What's he uh-ohing about?
He realises the responsibility that she has bestowed upon him now.
Yeah, he's basically tricked himself into becoming a father.
It's like when in the cartoons used to get like a human or some other animal would sit on the eggs of another creature and then they would call it daddy.
Yeah, that's it. You're stuck.
That's what happens.
Out at the entrance to the cave, Kirk is still unsuccessfully trying to contact the Enterprise.
Although we do see that he and Spock have fashioned old school bows and arrows.
They have, and we hear the newborn baby crying from inside the cave off screen as Kirk notes that this is ridiculous. The Capellans never developed bow and arrow technology, so this may be a surprise to them.
Yeah. Inside the cave, there is a brief moment of levity as an uncomfortable Spock refuses to hold the baby before Kirk is shocked to hear Elian refer to it as hers and McCoy's.
Yes, our child. McCoy says he'll explain later, and Spock thinks this must be interesting.
Yeah, well, you would do. Back up on the bridge, what's happening?
Scotty's now finally ordering a return to the planet and ignores a second distress call from a different ship, despite Uhura's desperate calls for him to check it out.
Yeah, she tells him this one is from the USS Carolina, and it is a registered ship.
It's meant to be in this sector.
But however, Scotty tells her to log it as his decision and ignore it. And when Sulu warns him of the consequences should it be real, he doesn't butcher the Bush proverb.
No, he gets it correct.
He does, yeah.
It's a Russian proverb.
So says Chekhov.
Indeed. Fool me once. We get a very brief scene inside the cave where Iain now, and from this point on, I'm completely bewildered as to her plan or her purpose.
I think I understand it.
Okay, so she knocks out McCoy with a rock
Yeah.
and leaves him and the baby behind and leaves the cave.
Yeah, so she is trying to save them.
Is she?
Yeah, she's knocking them out, and then she's got to go and tell them she's killed them. So she's doing a little bit of damage just to keep them out of the way.
Okay, expecting then that she'll be executed.
And they'll be left alone.
Okay.
I think that's how it's meant to work, but
We'll see. At the cave entrance, McCoy comes out to Kirk and Spock, who obviously didn't notice Iain running past them moments earlier.
she waited until they were looking in the opposite direction.
Yeah, they were each looking two different ways. Yeah.
McCoy's a little bit groggy and shouts on them to come down and tells them that Iain is gone but the baby remains.
Yes, McCoy wants to help now fight against the Capellans, but Kirk orders him to look after the baby because he has a duty as a doctor that it goes before his duty as an officer.
And he also concedes that in the future he should forget psychiatry and stick with surgery, which I think's that's what he's been trained in.
Well, you think he's meant to be able to handle all these things.
Why?
Remember a few episodes ago in season 1, Kirk thought he should be a psychologist. Neither of them are great at it. But I think in McCoy's role, he's meant to have a general grounding in all areas of medicine as the chief surgeon on the ship. Anyway, we know that Kirk's only good at reverse psychology.
Obviously. Back up in the bridge.
Very briefly, once again, the Enterprise is 31 minutes away from the planet, but something's in the way.
Yeah, a Klingon warship taking position directly in their path, causing Scotty to send out battle stations.
Yeah, they act as if they're flying in some kind of two-dimensional space where they can't go above, below, or around this ship.
This is your future cars, isn't it? Your flying cars problem. This is how you see it.
Exactly, it's blocked.
That's why you think flying cars are a terrible idea.
They're a terrible idea.
Yeah, because you've watched this episode.
It's just like more roads. It's not anything superior.
Yeah. Uhura gets no response from them. I think she tries to speak with the ship.
She does, and Sulu brings the vessel up on screen. Scotty doesn't want to back down, so they just carry on towards the Klingon ship.
Yeah, I think there's chat that they're effectively daring them to step over this line. It's sort of playing chicken here.
A little bit.
Scotty himself tries to communicate.
No success.
So decides just to go head to head.
Kamikaze.
Back down on the rocks, the warriors are almost on them as Kirk and Spock hide behind some other rocks with their bows, but are easily spotted.
No, they're not. You're looking for a completely different angle from these other people.
What?
You forget the Capellans are 7 feet tall. They can't see what we can see.
No, one of the chaps runs out, sees him, comes back and goes, yeah, they're over there behind those rocks.
That's true. That does happen. Mab is pleased that the Earthmen have made such great sport with their surprising cleverness.
But Crass again demands they be killed.
He's told the law will be honoured. At this, Iain comes down and says the baby is dead and she's also killed the humans.
Yeah, and she wishes to go and die in her tent, so she's trying to get them away from...
Yes. And Mab is happy with this because the word of the wife of a Tyr requires no verification, but Crass demands proof.
He moves forward and gets an arrow in his leg for his troubles, which starts a major battle.
Well, yeah, now I've got a problem with Mab. So Mab now knows that she was lying and is obviously, you expect, upset about that.
Yeah.
He knows that the humans are alive and he's angry at Crass for taking that step forward.
He'll be angry, but you'll understand that it's not his... Crass will do what Crass wants to do because he's not one of them.
Yeah, but he's upset about it. He thinks Crass should not have done this. But now...
And Crass gets a phaser, we should say.
Yeah, it becomes like a three-way battle because Crass turns back on the... First of all, he shoots at Spock, but then he turns on the Capellans.
Yeah, I think he kills... Does he kill one of them?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Spock and Kirk each take down Capellans with their bow and arrows.
Yeah.
And as Iain runs for the phaser that Kras had dropped, this is when he shoots at Spock's position.
Yes.
Kirk is concerned that Spock's been hurt, but he's not. He's fine.
And there's a bit of a standoff.
There is now. They try to contact the Enterprise again, and they come to the conclusion that no help is coming. So, knowing that death awaits them, Kirk decides he just wants revenge on the Klingon. He's going to kill him, and that's all his limit of his ambition.
At least this time he admits it. This is purely for revenge.
Yeah, well, the Klingons messed up all their plans. This should have been an easy mission. They're going to end up dead, and it's all his fault.
In the past, we've discussed Kirk taking a personal stance when he shouldn't.
Yeah, but yeah, like we said earlier, his plan here comes to nothing because Kras has turned on the Capellans for some reason.
Well, the Klingons are just evil to the core.
Yeah, but it makes no sense for Kras, unless he thinks the Capellans are going to kill him.
I think he does, yeah. I don't think he trusts the Klingons, the Capellans.
Yeah. So Eliane calls for the Capellans to fight. I'm not sure who she wants them to fight, but Mab at this point rescinds her death penalty, takes it on himself, so that he can distract Kras and be killed, while another one of them kills Kras with Keel, okay, he Kligats Kras to death.
Yeah.
It's very confusing to me. Why is Mab doing this?
I think Mab he's mentioned it a few times. He's impressed, he's got respect, so I think there's something in there. He sees something in the actions of Kirk and the crew that...
And maybe in the fact that Eliane is willing to sacrifice herself for them.
I think so, yeah.
I don't think it's clear, though.
It's not clear, no.
The two groups, Kirk and Spock and the warriors that remain, gather around Kras's body as a team of red shirts and Scotty suddenly arrive.
Yeah, they back them up, order them to drop their weapons and explain what held them up before being distracted by McCoy and his parenting advice to Eliane.
We missed you, Mr. Scott.
Well, sir, we had a wee bit of a run-in with a Klingon vessel, but he had no stomach for fighting. We checked the encampment, found out you were here, and had no trouble at all in tracking you down. I could...
No, that's not the way they handle it. Here, like this. Here, take his little head like that. There. Arm in, that's it. See how easy?
Oochie woochie coochie coo. Oochie woochie coochie coo.
Oochie woochie coochie coo, Captain. An obscure Earth dialect, Mr. Spock. Oochie coochie coochie coo. If you're curious, consult linguistics.
Well, at any rate, this should prove interesting.
Interesting?
When the woman starts explaining how the new High Tier is actually Dr. McCoy's child.
What's that again, Mr. Spock?
We don't actually understand it ourselves, Mr. Scott.
Nor does Dr. McCoy.
Oochie woochie coochie coo. Oochie woochie coochie coo.
We proceed rapidly to a wrap-up on the bridge.
Come on, Uchi Uchi Kitchi Coo.
How would Spock not know about baby talk? That doesn't make sense to me. He presumably knows about how humans educate their children.
You think? I mean, he'll have studied the basics, but the specifics of that, I'm not sure if he would. It's not the type of thing you would see in a manual.
It's not as bad as not knowing about Halloween, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, back up in the bridge.
Kirk asks Uhura to contact Starfleet and inform them that the mining rights have been secured by treaty and the documents have been signed by the young High Chief's regent, which prompts Spock to ask what happened. So I assume he just beamed up for a shower while they sorted everything out.
Yeah, Kirk also describes Eliane as a remarkable young lady.
Yes, and that the baby is now Tier and Eliane his regent. McCoy, who's shown up on the bridge, adds that the baby has been named after himself and Kirk.
Yes, Leonard James Akahar. Something that pleases both of them, but annoys Spock.
Yes, McCoy and Kirk agree that the name will go down in galactic history, while Spock is aghast, realising that they're both going to be insufferably pleased with themselves for at least a month.
I think that's accurate.
At this point, Kirk orders Sulu to take them out of orbit and they head off on their next adventure.
They do. How do you think this episode is generally regarded? Do you know?
I think it's below average. On IMDb, I think 6.9 on IMDb.
Yeah, but I meant just within the community. Do people...
I don't know that there's a consensus.
No.
There's some...
Well, there are a couple of major issues. The pregnant woman beating.
Yeah. Well, and my concern with it as well as that is I don't think they balanced the stakes and the humour. So the stakes were too high for the comedic elements. to work.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's that there's dark aspects. I mean, we're talking about pregnant women being sacrificed, murdered, going to their death. It's not a light-hearted subject matter.
And the things they were joking about, they weren't funny.
No.
It jarred for me.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think that's the problem with it. I think there's nice aspects to it, and I like the fact that there are darker. There is a darker subject matter, but the way it was handled, especially with the slapping and things like that, it's just that's not.
Yeah, there's episodes where the humour works. So eye mud. Even last week.
But we said the other day, I thought I can't remember what it was, but it was a very well-rounded episode, and this wasn't.
No,
this was the opposite.
It was like two different concepts being pushed together.
It was squared,
and again, maybe that's down to the fact that Dorothy Fontana writes it and then Gene Roddenberry rewrites it. I think he changed some of the characterizations and stuff like that. So it could be the fact it's too many cooks. But for me, the two parts the two aspects don't sit together comfortably.
Yeah, it was good to see a Klingon. I think that's the second time we've seen.
Yes.
Now, I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but my understanding of Klingons, or if you to ask me what they look like, it's that sort of elephant man look with a massive big forehead.
That's what they look like. You just have to use your imagination.
But they're not. I thought, what's this guy again? She just looks like a normal person.
So on screen, you don't really see them looking that way until the movies, but they were supposed to. So just use your imagination.
Because what's the main Klingon I'm thinking?
You're thinking of Worf, who's a crew member in the Next Generation.
Right. So I think that's what a Klingon looks like to me. So I was really surprised again when I saw this chap, thinking who's this?
I mean, you're not alone, because they redesigned them again when they did Star Trek Discovery, to the outrage of some people who worry about these things.
Okay, fair enough. Any trivia for us this week?
I do. So this originally aired on the 1st of December 1967. I don't have any information on why there was no episode on the 24th of November. I looked up the date.
What year?
1967. So there was no elections going on. There's nothing.
No
world events.
No assassinations.
I couldn't find any reason for it. Maybe it's just another show was premiering in the slot or something.
Yeah, a strike maybe.
Oh, who knows? Similar to last week's episode, Joseph Pevney was the director and Dorothy Fontana was the writer. So this is the 10th of 14 for Pevney. You can hear more about him on the podcast for Arena. Iain, did you recognise her?
Of course I did. That's the Columbo connection this week.
It is Julie Newmar. Yep. This is her only Star Trek episode, and she's maybe best known for playing Catwoman in the original Batman series.
I'd debate that. Can you remember the Columbo episode?
Yes, she was in Double Shock opposite Martin Landau. She played Lisa Chambers.
Opposite Martin Landau and Martin Landau,
indeed.
It was there's a memorable scene there when Columbo checks out her impressive physique while she exercises.
Yes, on the yoga mat.
Yeah, upside down, showing off her attributes.
Indeed. She's now 87 years old.
Yeah, she would be.
Yeah. She probably still does the yoga.
That's why you get to that age, keeping yourself in shape.
Limber. I think we had a debate, didn't we, after that episode, whether Martin Landau played 2 Columbo killers, if he qualifies.
No doubt.
Anyway, Tig Andrews, that's not his real name. His real name is Tiger.
Okay.
It's only shortened.
Right.
He played the Klingon Krass. This was his only appearance in the original Star Trek series, but he also showed up in series like Murder, She Wrote, The Mod Squad, Kojak, and Sledgehammer.
Yes.
There's a good podcast about that out there somewhere.
Yep, if you like Sledgehammer, track it down. I should say that again, I don't want to labour the point, but like Akahar and Krass, they're names of aliens. Gav is not.
Andrews died in 2007 when he was 86.
Well, I can't complain.
Michael Dante played Ma'ab. This was his only Star Trek episode, but he also appeared in shows like Knots Landing and Cagney and Lacey, and he was recognised for his body of work in westerns with a Golden Boot Award in 2003.
You might say this is the peak of his career.
Piak.
Dante's peak.
He's now 89 years old. He's probably listening.
No doubt, yeah.
Ben Gage played Aka'ar. This was his only Star Trek appearance, but he also showed up in series like Batman and Bonanza. He was married to Esther Williams, who you might have heard of. She was a swimmer turned actor who was very popular in the 40s and 50s.
Of course, I've heard of her.
Well, she got a Guardian obituary when she died. She must have been quite well known.
My swimmers from the 30s and the 40s. Yeah, that's them. I know all about them.
That one of your specialist subjects. Ben Gage died in 1978 when he was 63.
That's unfortunate.
Some trivia.
Sure.
Outdoor scenes, once again filmed at Vasquez Rocks, which is why they looked familiar. In the original script, Eliane gave her life to save the child, but this was vetoed by Gene Roddenberry, who tried to rewrite her as a stronger character.
Not one that was being slapped about then.
No, one who respects a bit of physical violence.
Who likes it, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
The 3 stunt doubles used in this episode all had alliterative initials. So there was J. Jones, Chuck Clow, and Dick Dial.
Chuck Clow doesn't work. Alliteration is the sound, not just the initials.
I said alliterative initials.
Ah, well, okay, fine, yeah.
Would you?
That's pure trivia. Did you make that up, or did you read that and thought, I'll put that in?
I put that in because I saw that the 3 stunt doubles had alliterative initials.
Okay, must do better.
If you were going to use a stage name, would you choose Dick Dial?
As good as anything, isn't it? Yeah.
In terms of international titles, we've got a few to look at this week. So in France, this was Un enfant doit mourir, which is a child must die, which doesn't make sense. No child died in the making of this episode.
No, okay.
Although it was sentenced to death. The Italians came a wee bit out of left field with Una prigione per Kirchico, which is a prison for Kirk and Company.
Yeah.
The Germans, they went for In Namen des jungen Tiere, which is on behalf of the young Tier. And meanwhile, in Japan, it was Shukoteki Kuringon no Shutsuen, which means, do you know?
Yeah, of course I do, but I can't be bothered.
The appearance of the Klingons, the old enemy of long standing.
I wonder what you sound like in Japanese.
They won't recognise it as Japanese, I would imagine.
No.
They'll think, what's he doing? What's the part of those noises? It's not how you pronounce those words. Next week, it's the 12th episode of Season 2, The Deadly Years, which is a big one for the makeup department.
Look forward to that then.
And in the meantime, we're all over social media. We're at Trek Podcast on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can find a post up for this and each and every episode at StarTrekPodcast.com, where we would love to hear your thoughts and reminiscences.
Until next week.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.